welcome back to Truth, Lies and Hair Ties. Yes, today we're actually in the conservatory. Not mine, it's my landlord's, but still, it's very pretty. So I was going to do a kind of summer hairstyle today whilst I talk about a lovely whale called Shemenk. It's a silent K at the beginning, which took me a while to figure out. Anyway, today I'm actually going to do a kind of like messy upstyle bun, but what's going to make it a little bit interesting is I actually put in one of these yesterday. So this is called a hair wrap, and lots of people think, what is a hair wrap? Do you need any sort of special gear or thread for it? But no, it's actually just embroidery thread, which I already had quite a lot of anyway, so I managed to create this little thing. And it's nice when you have your hair up and you can sort of see a few colours going through. And then I've just got this little scarf here that hopefully will go with my dress as well. So there's lots of different ways to do a kind of messy bun, but I'm actually going to use just one hair tie, same colour as my skin. I'm going to kind of do one ponytail, but as I pull the last bit of ponytail through, I'm actually going to then flatten it against my head and then use loads of bobby pins. So this video, it was actually recommended, and it was a comment on one of my videos, and someone had mentioned, oh, why don't you start talking about the Forgotten Whale of Argentina? So thank you for that, and finally I'm doing it. Just before we start, I always leave this bit out first, kind of get together all the hair that I need. As I said, I don't want it to be like too smooth. I want it to be looking a little bit kind of dishevelled. Now I'm going to pop this in, and I'm going to go through once, twice, and on the third time I'm actually only going to go halfway, and then with this part you can kind of do whatever you want. But I'm going to bring this round, bring it underneath, bring it underneath, and now this is when I flatten it against my head and kind of just pin all the way round. Okay, so yes, Shemenk. Now there are two stories as to what happened. The first one is very heroic. So apparently a pod of orcas, 4 of them, came into a bay, and unfortunately they were stranded. And so they decided, oh, well, let's take them back to the park so we can rehabilitate them. Okay. Is that what you do when animals are stranded? Because I'm pretty sure you try and get them back into the water. Anyway, Shemenk was actually the only one who survived, or at least was in captivity, because the other 2 in transit died. Basically, it was too traumatic for them, and it was self-inflicted injuries that caused them to die. So, well done. You saved one, and the other whale was actually too large. So I guess in life sometimes if you're too large, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So they let that one go. But you just think, oh, okay, so you were trying to help these whales, but actually 2 of them died before you even got them to the park. Okay, well done, doing a great job there. And I thought, right, I'm going to look up the definition of rehabilitation when it comes to animals. The treatment and care of a sick, injured or walking wild animal and its preparation for release to a successful life back into the wild. Which obviously didn't happen, because Shemenk is actually still in captivity today. Now, when he actually arrived, I think he was roughly around four years old, but he wasn't on his own. In the tank with him was a female orca called Belen. Now, she had previously already been in this tank on her own for 12 years, so she was probably quite happy to see another orca. And they had a baby together, very lovely. But pretty much soon after, the calf died, And then Belen in the year 2000 also passed away. So since then, Shemenk has sort of been mostly on his own, but sometimes he has like a couple of dolphins there with him as well. So the other story, as they said online, is a little bit more sinister, and they think it's probably closer to the truth, that they were forced to be stranded in order for these people to take him back to the park and make money from them. So when I say they or these people, who am I talking about? So I'm talking about the largest sort of theme park / animal park in Argentina, and it's called, I don't know if it's Mundo or Mundo Marino. And like many of the parks, you know, they started off very, very small. They hardly had any animals, and then of course over the years it's, you know, grown and grown to a huge park today. And the pool that he's in is pretty much the same size as Lolita's, and we all know that that one is not very big, and I'll just show you how small it is here. So there was one year that Six Flags, which is the entertainment park, decided, right, we're going to try and get an import permit, because they basically wanted to fly Shemenk over to basically breed him. So they thought, yes, I think a breeding program is exactly what we want to do. And Mundo Marino were like, yeah, cool, no worries. We'll also get a permit to allow him to fly out as well. But luckily, the park didn't actually own Shemenk. So the Argentine government decided, we'll deny that. You're not allowed to. Over probably worries of, it's very far. Is it going to be okay? You know, I think there'll be lots of risks. Would prefer not to do it. So I was like, yes, great. But that didn't stop SeaWorld. They thought, okay, no worries, well, we'll just fly over and collect the semen from Shemenk and fly it back over to impregnate some of our female orcas. Yeah, nice. And it's interesting when they used to say, you know, oh, we're trying to make it as natural environment as possible for our animals here. Well, that's not exactly natural. And the whale Casatica, don't know if you remember, she was the one who dragged Kenneth Peters during one of the shows. Well, she got impregnated by this whale, lovely, and she actually had 2 calves, and she also had this done to her by using Tilikum's sperm as well, lovely. And apparently, I don't know if this is completely true, but apparently it was before sexual maturity. So they were still very, very young. And sometimes even 3 months after, they would try again, you know, which I think is a bit soon. You know, if you've just had a calf, you sort of want their bodies to recover. I don't know, I'm sure it's different for animals, but still I think 3 months is, you know, a little bit too soon to be trying and doing this process all over again. So I thought, well, let's see, there might be an actual reason for this. Because I know in other parks they do it as well, certain breeding programs. So I thought, well, let's look into it, because there might actually be a good reason to create animals in a rather unnatural way. So I read that it could be to either populate them, it might be because there's a lot of fishing pollution, it could be disease, or maybe they're endangered. And this is the response that I found. The reason as to why you would do this sort of thing. It says, oh yes, in some cases a captive breeding program can save a species from extinction one day releasing them back into the wild. Nowhere does it say we're just going to make more animals to keep them in the park so we can make more money from them and not put them back into the wild. But as I said before, it didn't actually start off this way. Now, I think his name is Jean David Mendez, actually first helped sick animals. Some of them would actually be stranded, and they would maybe take them back if they were injured, you know, care for them and then let them go. Yay! But of course, somewhere down the line, that went out the window, money took over, and then shortcuts were taken. And then all of a sudden you've got a huge park that's open to the general public. You've got rides you can go on. You've got these animals. You've got an entertainment show with orcas, you know, and they probably won't go back to helping sick animals. Or maybe they're slightly like SeaWorld. Well, they'll help a few animals, you know, to make it look good. But ultimately they are still keeping one orca captive on his own. Oh, you kind of want Shemenk and Lolita to maybe, you know, be in the same tank together, so at least they can go through the same thing. But I couldn't actually find any specific measurements online. You could with Lolita, her tank measurements were there, but for Shemenk they're not. And some people even think that maybe, possibly, it could be smaller than Lolita's tank. Because I know from the picture I'll show here, you have the main entertainment area, and then you have a back pool, and then you have a medical pool, which I think is a quite small one. But there is a part there that obviously looks quite big. And this is what I used to think. I was like, yeah, but that part of the pool looks really good. And you forget it's not deep. It's not very deep. They can't actually dive. So I guess that's why here's the sort of forgotten whale of Argentina, because I couldn't actually find too much about him. You know, all I knew was that he wasn't aggressive. I think he had quite a calm sort of temperament, but it was mostly just kind of how they were captured and how he was the only surviving one, but there was no other articles or news or anything. So yes, it is a little bit sad. I think more people probably know about Lolita's story than Shemenk. So as I said before, whoever recommended it, I appreciate it. He seemed like, yeah, quite a nice orca. I say that in past tense. He's still alive, but it's just sad that he's still stuck, a little bit like Lolita. And they aren't the only animals, apparently, that have slightly suffered in this park. I did find some sea lions, and here are a few photos. Don't worry, they're not too distressing or anything. You might be able to see, I know it's quite a dark picture, but the eye there has a strange sort of blue tinge to it. So I looked that up, and basically it's behind the sort of lens that they have. It can get very cloudy, which can produce these kind of bluish kind of tinge. And ultimately, if you know, it's left untreated, it can cause blindness. And I thought, well, let's look into it. And it's called cataracts, which is what we have. You know, we can get it as well, but it's mainly linked to aging, which is the same in animals as well. But I thought, well, let's look into it a bit more for animals in captivity, because there was an article on SeaWorld of Hurt where it says it's because of the constant sunlight, there's no shade. And I think it's the same, I don't know if you remember in Marineland Park when some of the bears got fed by the customers and the bears would have to sort of leap up to get this food. I think it was similar, because I found this picture where they're sort of feeding the sea lions, and obviously they're having to constantly look up for the food, but then of course they've got the direct sunlight. So I thought, okay, let's see if they're both linked. And I did find quite an interesting article here. So yeah, I went online. It was called ResearchGate, and it was the risk factors associated with cataracts, lens luxations in captive pinnipeds in the United States and Bahamas. And this was uploaded by Carmen Coltes, who's a doctor of veterinary medicine. So, access to UV protective shade early identification and medical management of ocular diseases and prevention of fighting, because they do like to fight between themselves, can limit the frequency or severity of the lens-related disease in this population. An extended lifespan may result from captivity, but this is only going to allow development of pathological changes associated with aging, including cataracts. So the sunlight might not be like the direct cause, but it's definitely, you know, day after day, year after year, in direct sunlight, it's not going to help. So that's kind of it for Shamenk for now. There wasn't really any other sort of information I could find, as I said, but I thought I'd leave it on a good note. I thought let's find a nice article where someone has helped, I don't know, whales or animals, if they have been stranded, to actually help them to get back into the water. And I found this one. It was actually from last year, 24th of August 2020. And this was a mass stranding, but this story is it's quite incredible, and it must have been extremely tiring. As someone who often mans the 24-hour hotline, I'm accustomed to early morning calls reporting various marine mammal strandings. Even still, I doubt I could fully prepare myself for this call. At 8:01 a.m, the first time my jaw physically dropped when manning the hotline. The harbour master reported 30 stranded dolphins in one of the trickiest areas of Wellfleet, which is in the US. The infamous stranding hotspot that traps dolphins with its hook-shaped topography and extreme tides. I asked the harbour master to repeat himself, but sure enough, he was witnessing the dolphins himself. I wasn't going to wait for a photo confirmation. I immediately dispatched all personnel we had and sent out the call for any additional help that we could gather. With a stranding this large, it wasn't feasible to extract all 43 animals from the mud, get them to our mobile veterinary clinic, and then transport them for release at a more favourable open ocean location, all before the tide came in. We were going to have to adapt, and fast. Tide was coming in quickly and the day was getting hotter. The animals had been stranded a while before the call came in, as well as they were already suffering from heat and sun exposure. Upon getting to the scene, there was no time to react to the sheer chaos that lay ahead. After a quick scan of the situation, 45 animals widely dispersed, only a few staff members and several volunteers, there wasn't a second more to linger. We began the grueling process of getting as many animals as we could into custom slings, into the cart and off the marsh as quickly as possible. This was not without its challenges. The mud trapped and enveloped your feet, adding weight with each step. Most animals were highly fractious when approached, and the heat became oppressive in dry suits and COVID-19 PPE. Oh, I've worn full PPE inside, and that was sweaty and hot enough. I can't imagine what it would be like outside in the boiling sunlight. But none of that was going to stop us from doing what we could for these animals. So I won't go into loads and loads. I'll come down a little bit further. And yeah, so this is mainly what they had to do. We worked tirelessly to extract the least stable animals 2 at a time. So began what can only be described as the most athletic event of my life. All animals were struggling to keep their blowholes above water, writhing in sticky mud. The team worked unceasingly to keep these animals safe. With a person to dolphin ratio of roughly 1 to 7, we ran from one animal to the other, situating them upright to breathe, only to have them roll moments later and again needing help. The extensive activity turned the water opaque, requiring us to blindly feel for the animals in the water. This went on for over an hour, while simultaneously extracting animals before the tide fully came in. The dolphins reacclimatized and started to swim on their own with the rising tide. Our team worked to encourage the remaining 30 dolphins off into deeper water. Knowing that dolphins often re-strand themselves once pushed off, vessel support was on standby to shepherd the animals out of precarious waters. And so I think 9, 10, 11, I think it was about 11 dolphins they were actually able to take away, physically take away. But unfortunately, only 9 survived. I think 2 of them they actually had to euthanize before they caused any more sort of harm to themselves. But 9 out of those, I think, was pretty good. And at a later date, they were able to release them into, better waters. And the others obviously were able to unbeach themselves with a lot of help. So I think it's not, I don't want to always talk about the doom and gloom of things that happen. There are so many stories out there that perhaps haven't been read yet. I didn't even know this one happened last year. And oh yeah, sorry, it was actually, I'll tell you, it was right at the bottom here. Yes, she was basically, thanking everyone for their, heroics and their help. And it was Kira Casper, stranding technician, marine mammal rescue and research. So I can imagine that being a very long, tiring and stressful day. But isn't it incredible that we've got these people out there that are willing to do this, that it is absolutely a huge part of their lives. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me on this very, very warm Saturday. Everything is becoming just a little bit too hot, so I think I'm going to make my way outside. But everyone have an amazing week. Obviously, I'll be uploading this on Monday for you. And I'm not sure what to do next. So if anyone has any other suggestions for me, don't hesitate. Please let me know. And I will now show you a few photos of this hairstyle that I've done. All right, bye.